We need to say yes to only the things that are in alignment with our purpose. A lot of times we put a lot of other things in front of it that, we don't really need to be doing. We get caught up in the busyness, not the business of what we should be doing. We realize that we can't say yes to everyone and everything because we can't be all things to all people. When we do that, things can get really messy and we can get very stressed and very fractured.
How we doing, everybody? Welcome back to the Intercompass Podcast. I'm here with my good friend Scott Kidd, episode number 22. And this episode got some real things or what yes, go. Self, jump right to go over. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, let's start off.
Yeah, it was fine. And then all right, we got it.
All right, so here we are, gentlemen. All right, here we go. We are doing episode number 22 on our Intercompass Podcast here with my good friend Scott Kidd. And we've got an exciting message today, so stay tuned because today is about what's yes or what reprogramming could do to self-sabotage. Scott, kick it off, buddy.
How you doing, Eddie? It's always great to be here. It's one of the main things, we're going to talk about with self-sabotage and everything is getting out of our own way. It's such an important thing because self-sabotage, we need to say yes to only the things that are in alignment with our purpose, and a lot of times we put a lot of other things in front of it that, we don't really need to be doing. We get caught up in the busyness, not the business of what we should be doing. It's a hard road sometimes that we realize that we can't say yes to everyone and everything because we can't be all things to all people. When we do that, things can get really messy and we can get very stressed and very fractured. And there's where that, throwing all these things in front of us is where that self-sabotage comes in.
Also, I found out this week, it's also, you got to be very careful everything you say yes to, because sometimes we can say yes to so much, we end up sabotaging everything we're trying to do. And I want to explain just a little bit, sometimes we start this health journey or we start this business journey and suddenly we're like, hey, what would be the things that are creeping into me what's the downside risk? Like what things am I saying yes to that could really impact? And let's be honest, we could be self-sabotaging by just simply saying yes to too much. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
I can hear you. I'll try this from my cell phone.
Okay. Maybe. Hey, whatever we got to do.
Whatever we got to do, man. I only got about, 40 minutes to my next meeting.
With that.
Yeah. All right. So let's start all over again here. Let's wing it.
All right.
How we doing, everybody? Eddie Austin here with my good friend Scott Kidd. We're getting ready to record episode number 22 of the Intercompass Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about self-sabotage and, more importantly, could the yeses you say to sabotage the things you're trying to create in your own life. Scott's going to kick us off by talking about what this means, and I'm going to backfill on some real life stories.
Well, first of all, great to be here with you, Eddie. It's always great. Get a lot out of this, and it's something I know I've struggled with myself. Self-sabotage, really it's got to get out of my own way and stop saying yes to all these things that are really detracting from the things that I should be saying no to. And there should only be a couple of things that I'm saying yes to, and they have to be in alignment with all my core values, my purpose in my business, my family, and everything else. Because, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your self-beliefs.
Man, what a true statement. Oftentimes we kind of plan or aspire to be much more in life. And I think sometimes we have to kind of reprogram ourselves around the more we try to do, like what you just said, the more we try to do, the more instance that we kind of face is self-sabotage. So, and we also know that hindsight's 2020. So every time I have strived to do way more in life, or whether that's in personal or in business, the self-sabotage becomes real. It becomes me making very vulnerable decisions. And I have to like consistently tell myself the fear is not invisible. You have to act. You can't retreat. You can't feel the guilt. Sometimes you just got to reset and just keep moving. And that's the only way to move through these things. Oh, we just bought into a company here a while back, and we got tons of these business ventures that we're going into, and we're thinking about all these different things that we can do to make more money in the business. And right after I said yes to an idea, I immediately started to self sabotage that. But I
Mm-hmm.
got to say, it's a good thing, because here's the problem: we didn't think about the downside.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think this is the line we have to really draw in the sand. Are these self sabotaging feelings, are they valid?
Mm-hmm.
Are are they logical? And I think that that's what we should kind of structure this episode on, is just thinking this logically. Put your fears in a logical sense. When you're trying to do some amazing things in life and the self sabotage creeps in, start putting some logical thought. And for me personally, logical thought came into this. We're just talking about some data centers here before we started this episode. And you are also involved in, or know somebody that's involved in building a data center. And man, there's a lot to
Yeah.
learn. A
Yeah.
lot.
A whole lot. Power consumption, cooling capacity, safety issues, fire restrictions. You can't just put them in anywhere, and then you probably have a whole slew of things that the city, county, and stuff is going to look for, because they're starting to know now what these things require.
Yeah. So let's be honest. How many times, Scott, have you come up with a new requirement, a new thing that you've heard about, and you went to apply it to your life, and instantly you found out there was way more things that you needed to learn about before you started?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing like where you hear of a new thing. It's kind of sometimes that's shiny object syndrome, which
Yeah,
detracts you from all those things that you should be doing. It gets you off track just enough to where you're maybe a degree off or whatever, and it detracts from what you're doing. And we've talked about this before. A degree off over 100 miles, that puts you pretty far off the target. You know,
long ways off the
yeah,
target.
and you by first once that thing comes to you, really taking a look at it, it might be something that'd be a great tool for you to use, but it might not be the right time.
Absolutely, for
It
sure.
might not be something that, because when I started kind of really diving deep into myself, sometimes I got to a point where I realized that, wait a minute, my morning routine is way too long. Some of this part I should be, because this is the most creative time that I am in, so I need to kind of go through some of these things. And then, like, if those ideas are there, that work is on my head, I need to just push through it, and then get on with my day and stuff, because everything's not a great idea. I mean, I would love to just continually work on myself and to have like a 3-4 hour morning routine, and
Yeah,
be the best Scott kid I could be after that 4 hours. But if I did that work every day, after 4 hours, I'm probably going to need a nap.
absolutely. Yeah, for
Because
sure.
that's a lot of work. It's
Yeah,
a lot of energy. That I'm a lot of work.
yeah, yeah. My wife would probably tell you the same thing. He's a lot of work. You know, thinking about this, you can think about the self sabotage and in your personal life. You can think about it in this health journey. You can think about it in business. There's so many ways. But to really dig into this, let's take a business approach for today. And let's just think about this, because I know we got business owners that listen to this.
Yeah.
And let's think about this really, because I think a lot of the times we can say, boom, just instant, we can say yes to something. But yet, sometimes we kind of sit on the edge of this, I'm not ready.
Mm-hmm.
What if I fail? What if I succeed? What are the deep roots to all these? What if it works out? And you had a great quote that came from Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And I know I personally have thought about things, man, if this works out the way it's supposed to, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
But also, what if it doesn't work out? What could be the damages
Mm-hmm.
if this thing goes south?
Yeah, and it's a definitely something that we really have to take all the things in and think it through, because the downside a lot of times, like we were talking about your data center and stuff, it was gonna be X amount coming in and everything else, but it's easy to say yes because the money sounds like a lot or sounds like it could be, but it may not be if you don't think it through because all the other things we were talking about, like power requirements, cooling requirements, city and state, fire, all these things going in it, it might be a minus 10 or a minus 20 every month, plus, who's paying the power bill and everything else and all those things, and the quote you were talking about is don't think too small because you just might make it,
Yeah.
and I know I've been guilty of doing that because I probably, without realizing, I was taking the lesser of the goal, kind of self-sabotaging myself because it was comfortable, you know
Yes.
it was a safety play, and I would feel good about getting it even though I knew I could have done a lot more, you know
And what is
so
what's the famous quote? You grossly overestimate what you can do in a year, but you grossly underestimate what you can do in 10 years or what you're
yeah.
capable of in 10 years. So, to get in the weeds a little bit about this opportunity, let's just say that this opportunity could make $8,000 a month. That $8,000 a month sounds extremely impressive
Hmm.
on the front end. But yet, we haven't thought about all the other things that could completely derail us and cost us
Hmm.
way more than $8,000 a month. Let's be honest. Number one, so this is what I meant by in the beginning of the episode about logical thinking. So sometimes even in your health, let's think about powerlifting for a minute. Hey, I want to become a power lifter. Well, what if along the way I tear my bicep off my bone? And
Hmm.
then what logical, like long-term problems could I create for myself? And think about this in business, just about this business venture by itself. Okay, if we say yes to this and suddenly we figure out that the power costs us $6,000 a month, and that wasn't even in the contract that we had to pay for the power or that we get reimbursed for it.
Yeah.
And another thing, man, what worst case scenario, like what if we completely something catches fire
Yeah.
and the fire suppression ends up just melting down all the data, that data server room. Holy cow, who's going to pay for that? Like these are really good thoughts, but they got to be logically approached.
Yeah. One thing I just thought about that is there are some additional insurance requirements because of the heat, because of the power, because of because of the cooling. You got a lot more mechanical stuff that's involved with this. And then does it need to have some type of built-in containment, for a halon system or a CO2 system, like we are speaking of, and how much is that going to cost, and who's paying for that? I mean, if that can be done over time, if it can work out to where the $1,000 is just the rent that they're paying, and they take in all these additional costs, or there's some kind of a recapture formula or process, then it could be worth a look at. But if it's without all these things, there's where it could end up being pretty detrimental to the rest of the entire business plan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that though these things can really be approached from a logical sense. And you can just say, okay, well, we know we need to check on insurance. We need to check on the fire system. And what's the physical equipment? Do we have to upgrade panels? Do
Hmm.
we have to upgrade the meter base to even supply enough power to this thing? Can the grid handle it? What about a cooling tower? Is there
Exactly.
cooling capacity to cool this thing down? What's it generating heat? All these things, like, you just gotta really come up with these things. And I think sometimes we forget that we need to talk to other people. We need to talk to experts that can help say, hey, Scott, I know you're doing like 4 hours in the morning in your morning routine, but it's leaving nothing left in the tank, to do the rest of the day. So, what if you shave that down to 30 minutes and then you applied, maybe you're low on energy. Maybe you applied some stretching after lunch, or maybe a 5-minute meditation after lunch. And maybe you broke this up into smaller chunks. So I think that sometimes we can get into this loop of self-sabotage,
Hmm.
and they can almost stop us from moving forward completely. But we can put logical things into place, and we can say, hey, maybe all these things are already worked out. Maybe all these things are already answered for us. We just need to like get an expert involved and then say, hey, is this agreement, does it actually fit like all the things that we're concerned about? And real quickly, you could say, no, absolutely not. It's going to take XYZ for the power. It's going to need a different fire system. You got to notify the fire department. Like, there's all these different things. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, glad I didn't say yes to that, because that could have been sabotage. And then glad I didn't continue 4 hours a day in my morning meditation, because that was sabotage. Yeah. So I think that this takes a lot of brain power, right? When we say, hey, I'm going to improve my health, but maybe we just need to do many exercises. And
Hmm.
what I mean is not many like MANY, like mini, like MINI,
Hmm.
like small. Maybe it's like 15-minute interval in the morning, and 5 minutes of meditation. And start small. That way you can build the habits. So then self-sabotage can't stop you.
Yeah, it's the small actions that will help you correct, and sometimes just taking the pause to take the action to detach for a second, like the self sabotage. Initially, instinct was probably the 8 grand a month for that. Oh yeah, that sounds great, but without doing all the other stuff that would have self sabotaged the rest of the entire project had you not thought through all these other things. Like even, you know, one additional thing that I thought about was like, what's the backup requirement for backup generator, backup power?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Something like what do you need for that? What is the requirement there? Because that person's obviously providing data for somebody, and you can't be down. You can't be, oh, you can get your data tomorrow.
Let's be honest. Let's say if one of our internal clients inside this server room or data room is Riverside FM,
Hmm.
and this exact podcast episode is like the best one ever, and suddenly the power goes out, and now we can't record a podcast, or
Yeah,
we can't splice this thing together because our data's lost. Like, some people are making some pretty big moves with these data centers.
most
The chat
definitely.
GPT, there's investors, there's everything else. So yeah, there's got to be probably an A plan, a B plan, a C, all the way to
Yeah.
probably a Z for backup.
And then also, if that person is building out these data centers, he probably has investors as well. What effect is that on the returns and everything else? Because you can't, you cannot have a data center where it's sometime-ish, where you'll get it next week, or tomorrow or whatever. It's not like going to the islands where you're clearing customs and say, oh, they'll come by tomorrow sometime. It's
Yeah,
fine.
right.
And that could be anytime between now and when you die, when they decide to come.
No, thank you. No, thanks.
Yeah, that's data is a tricky thing. It's a very what sounds very simple as yeah, data center, put it in there, 8 grand a month. That sounds awesome. We can do that. Yeah, that would definitely be sabotage if you didn't think through all those things, for sure.
Well, the cool part about this, and I think that this really comes down to, this can also be applied to a lot of things in life. But the cool part about this is we're thinking through this now before we sign the dotted line.
Hmm.
because sometimes you have to reframe failure as feedback.
Hmm.
Well, let's be honest, feedback sometimes hindsight's 2020. Like
Yeah,
we see everything in the rears clearly. We
clearly.
like you can see clearly now that the rain is gone.
Hmm.
But sometimes it's nice to say, hey, let's think about this. Like, really good. Let's really put some thought into this and say, hey, what are the things that could go wrong? And how do we protect ourselves when they do go wrong? And what could it cost? Like, what can this really cost?
Yeah, and that's definitely like it goes back to what you were saying about what the true cost of it. It's the difference between failing and learning. Because if you did all those things and it wasn't the right fit, it would be a failure. But it would most failures are learning moments. And if you fail faster, you get there faster. And there's where, like you said before, you want to bring in somebody that an expert that's hey, who in my network has built one of these things before or knows about this, is in the tech world, and maybe they went through that already. Maybe they said, hey, look at this and this. Because then you will end up getting a lot further, because you'll say, hey, no, this is not a good fit for us, or yes, it is, but we need XYZ, A, B, C, and D for that to work for us. Then that way, because if you're doing a quick yes, it could be just putting a world of hurt right in front of you that would be a self-sabotage, because the rest of the business is going to suffer because you're going to be all consumed with solving that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, the next thing I want to talk about is there was some things that happened in my business ventures that now make me think this way. So, there's a difference between failing and learning.
Hmm.
I've learned from my mistakes. That's why I'm applying this knowledge into today. That's why successful people collect and fail faster. They want to get to a fail point as fast as they can so they can learn from it. They can course correct. And then, the real story here from our own journey, I know you have several of them, that these setbacks now become a setup for the future, because you're like, hey, I remember when I did that and there was a lot of things I didn't know. I think that failure sometimes is the opposite to success, but it's also the tuition that pays for the future.
Yeah, it's definitely our tuition, and sometimes we don't realize that we need to pay that tuition to get to the next levels, because a lot of times the things that I know in your business and in mine, like we've gone through those things, and it was well, like they say in like my nephew would say in the Marine Corps, was the welcome to the suck. And they're like, and they say that to themselves, I think, because sometimes it's just going to suck, but it'll be over at some point, and then you get through it and you go, well, it sets you up for the next thing. And you didn't realize you had to go through that thing to get to all that, and it's one of those things that always helps me, is just like you were saying, doing those small little actions. Because if you're 1% better every day, at the end of the year, that's quite a lot, and you got to keep those promises to yourself, and by doing that, those small actions become a little building blocks of confidence, little micro confidence, that those
Yes.
little daily reps will keep getting you doing there. Like myself, I've always been in operations and stuff as a boat captain and stuff. It's a quick answer, yes, no, that kind of stuff. But in real estate, I've had to kind of do more of things on the sales side and stuff. So I have to continue to keep making those calls, reaching out to people, talking to people, doing social media to attract people, and that's different. And that put me out of my comfort zone. I'm okay with calling somebody and talking about the boats, or I need X, Y, and Z. But like in the beginning and stuff with real estate and business, like, usually someone else was doing more of the sales kind of thing. So for myself, like you always say, well, it's probably in your phone, just everybody in your phone, just keep calling everybody in your phone until you
Yeah,
find that person. And that works with a lot of things. We all probably have the solution somewhere in that phone.
absolutely. And I love what you said about the micro confidence, because I think that really comes down to keeping small promises to yourself. And what I mean by like not keeping that small promise to yourself, like knowing that the words you speak matter and you keep your own promises. So you never want your mind to think that as minute you open your mouth, that you're going to lie to yourself.
Hmm.
Like, I think that sometimes we say, hey, I'm going to start this new gym routine. I'm going to go start this new business venture. But your mind automatically knows, no, he's not,
Yeah,
because he
it's
can
going to be
never keep a
tomorrow.
promise to yourself, right? So I
Yeah.
think we never ever want our mind to say, I, yeah, he's just talking. That's
Yeah.
just what he
Yeah.
does. And I think at the end of the day, it's what you just said. It's the micro confidence comes from keeping promises, like, and maybe not make great big promises,
Hmm.
and make like small micro increments that you can actually go for it, do it, achieve it. Hey, got some confirmation back. I like that. I need to do it a little bit longer next time. And I think every time you keep a promise with yourself, you instantly vote for you becoming a better person,
Yes.
because you're getting a track record. Like your track record is, hey, I can do this for 7 days because I just did it for the last 30. But it started with maybe little 5-minute daily habits that you just got
Hmm.
used to doing, and you did it no matter what the circumstance.
Well, and that's something that I remember when I first started training and stuff, and training other people, especially if they hadn't done any type of training before. First thing I always made them do is just walk the track. A lot of them wanted to get in there and do these large workouts, and it wasn't like I told them, I said it's not beneficial. Like, well, I want to do what you do, and like, well, have you worked out before? No. Okay, not good, because you're probably going to need to check with a doctor, and your heart rate's probably going to be so high that you're probably going to hurt yourself or have some pain. Walk around the track every day, and then first week just drink only water and coffee. No sodas, no nothing. And then next week would be cut salt, and the week after, okay, you're going to run a little bit, and then and then
Mhm.
after a month, if they stuck with it, they cut out multiple habits in their life that were, they stopped a high amount of salt, high amount of sugar, food, fatty foods, fried foods, or what have you. And it was one small thing. And once they had gone that 30 days, they knew that they could do it because they started seeing the progress. That's exactly. And that gave them the micro confidence became macro confidence, because after 30 days, 6 months, that's huge, because that 1% better becomes a big thing.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah, I think that that's where a lot of people suffer injuries and get hurt and can't come back from it, because they say yes to something that's great big.
Hmm.
Whether that's a business yes or that's a health yes, and it's just not achievable. And they're not breaking it down to small little bite-sized chunks. And from that, I know for me personally, I have definitely had times that I self-sabotage myself because I didn't prove it to myself first. I just went for it, these great big dreams. I'm okay with failing. Well, you fail so long that it starts to creep up on you, and you're like,
Yeah.
man, I just need a win. I just need a small win. But dude, you're trying to bench 400 pounds and you've been going to the gym for a month. Like,
Yeah.
come on. You gotta put in some reps for a little bit. You gotta, just like with business, you gotta put in some reps. You gotta, you know, don't go out here and make a big yes that could just bankrupt the whole company.
Yeah.
Hey, where could we start small?
Hmm.
And what could we say? Okay, well, let's get this done first, and let's build our confidence around it. Let's learn through these little small failures. It's not going to bankrupt the company. It's not going to rip her bicep off her
Yeah.
bone. Let's start small, build our confidence, and I think that's really how we tear down the entire self-sabotage loop. Is it's just consistency.
Yeah, it most definitely is. And I would say all those little actions I know in for myself, like they become big actions. But my biggest self-sabotage was, I got used to failure and just those kind of things. So I almost thrived in that chaos. That things, I'm okay with getting knocked down. I can take a punch. I can take it. So I always get back up and get stronger and everything. But I always get to that because the self sabotage came in because it was more of a fear of success because I more didn't really understand who that person needed to be or what that all looked like. So I kept putting all these things in front of me, like, you know, taking the 8 grand for the data center and stuff like that when that wasn't really in alignment with what I was doing, or I didn't think it through. So it just added more things rather than just moving all those things and going straight to what that thing was or who that I needed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good call to action for our listeners is what is a good area that you've been holding yourself back in? Drop that in the comments. And if there's any way that we can help you with that, we'd be glad to. Like Scott and I both have done tremendous amounts of weightlifting, and you're a runner as well.
Hmm.
I am starting to be more of a runner, and there's lots of things we've done in our business ventures of all different types. So if there's something that is holding you back, drop it in the comments on with us on the social media or on YouTube here. Wherever you can, drop the comment, and maybe the next breakthrough starts with just awareness.
Hmm.
And sometimes, like you said, bring in that expert. Maybe we cannot be that expert for you, but maybe we know the right person to put you with that can say, hey, we got somebody that can help you. But the only way that that ever happens is moving your lips, like saying,
Yeah.
hey, or the strike of the keyboard and say, hey, here's where I'm stuck. I'm getting held back because of this reason.
Yeah, a lot of
Cool.
times what I know was held myself back is I just didn't put my hand up and go, "Hey, I need help," or I knew something was wrong, but I didn't talk to anybody or didn't try to figure out what the underlying issue was. And that a lot of times is a game changer with that. So, like Eddie was saying, we're glad to help, put it in the comments, you know, reach out to us, what have you. We're glad to help. If we don't know, we'll find somebody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's jump in here to the lightning round, Scott. What is one thing that you're grateful for that happened this week?
One thing that I'm grateful for, my daughter said she needs to come home. She wants to come home more often.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a really good
that's a
one.
great one for me and my wife.
Number two, what struggle have you faced this week that you found a weakness?
A struggle that I found a weakness was when we're working on our development deals, we're raising capital, launching the fund and everything. Is the weakness was not following up at the right time with people. Like I need to get synced up with people because everybody has their different cadence and stuff, and that's something I'm learning, and that's something I'm getting better at. But it just takes more reps.
That's it. Last one. In what way in the past week was you able to impact someone else's life?
Impact somebody else's life. Okay, at at our meetup, there are two younger guys, and they weren't sure what to do. So I just talked to them briefly, and my friend Vu as well. And I told them, I said, well, here's my number. Let's get on a call to you guys. They're about 18 and 19, and they want to get into real estate, and they're very sharp young men. And I said, okay, just get on a call. We'll talk it through, and I'll help you find what you need to do. So, that's what we do, right, Eddie? I mean,
That's it.
there was a lot of times where I put my hand up where I was young, and everyone was like, you're not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, man, bless you for doing that because I know that one phone call could just, strike the match to their fire with what
Yeah.
they're doing, and you're going to guide them in the right way. So, man, thank you for, serving that capacity because you can easily say I'm too busy. I just
Yeah.
got too many things going on.
And I know when I was starting a lot of different things, there was a lot of times I was on my own or felt on my own. So sometimes, all you need to do is listen sometime. Everybody needs help sometime, and I get really excited and energized when I see young people in general that generally get a bad rap that they're lazy and young people don't want to do anything. These guys. So I get a lot of energy and I'm like, okay, we got to give these guys some guidance so they go off to the races, and they'll be a big
Absolutely.
help for us because these young people are our future.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love that. Well, Eddie Austin here. You find me anywhere on social media, hashtag Eddie Austin BEX. You can go to my website. You can also go to YouTube. You can find these episodes. And we hope that this is impactful to you as well. And at the end of the day, all we're looking for is to help people out. Like we started this and said, hey, what is our true north? What are the things that are in our life that we're searching for, that we're pointing ourselves to? And we decided to start doing this podcast so we could help other people find their true north. And, just like you might look at Scott and I being way far advanced, but I can promise you, if you come up to any one of us at a meetup, real estate conference, or even on a phone call, we'll tell you we're just getting started.
That's
And
right.
that's all that matters is we have this mindset. Look, we may have been through a lot, but we're just getting started. We're constantly learning every single day, and that's what makes us improve. So, Scott, where can people find you?
It's easy to find me, investwithscottkid.com, all my social media, the Intercompass Podcast, the Yacht Captain Investor Podcast, and I'm on all the social medias. You can find it there on the website.
Well, Scott, I'm going to finish this out today. I'm going to say this, guys. Please post on any of our social media. If you need help, reach out. I know this is a very challenging time. I know that right now it won't be by the time the government starts back up, this episode will already be released. But I know that even government shutdowns have really impacted lots of people's income, lives, people on government assistance that are not getting that assistance right now. Look, we're past this, hopefully, now that episode number 22 is out. But what I want to say is we always face struggles. We always do. So build a life with resilience. And that can just come from listening to these episodes and starting to take small micro steps every single day to improve your life to where you might be able to impact other people's lives like Scott's doing with the two young gentlemen. So share this episode with somebody else. Be extraordinary, and we'll see you on the next episode.